Hello out there, all you wonderful people. This is Andre, the Game Idea Guy. Thank you once again for lending me your time and your ear, listening into another Gamer's Thoughts discussion. And this one was prompted by a Twitter conversation because it is funny to me and also sad that people claim to be enthusiasts or experts about a subject, but then me as a layman, I know more than you, and I can describe and understand the situations that you can't. And a lot of this stuff is stuff I figured it out on my own because I research things. And on top of that, I do have other people that I listen to that I can verify the stuff that they talk about by going behind what they say and going over it. So this was another person that wanted to dunk on the Switch. At this point, you can consider it whatever you feel like. You want to talk about how it's the weakest hardware, I don't really care. We can all acknowledge that. But it's the weakest hardware with reason. It's not like, okay, this is just sitting in a standalone console and it has massive amounts of power pumped through it. It's a fucking tablet running video games that are console level on 15 watts maximum of power. But let's just get over to this. The dude who's having this conversation is a tech enthusiast, and apparently is upset or wants to dunk on the Switch about Genshin Impact not running well on it because it runs better on an iPhone 7. Okay. That's step one. Genshin Impact has never been released officially on a Nintendo Switch. So then he states, well, then you have to go ahead and put Android on it, and it runs this way through Android. Have we not seen? I'm not the only person that's seen this, correct? But you install Android on a Switch, it lags. Android itself lags on the Switch because it wasn't designed for the machine. It wasn't designed for the machine in question. It's not about the parts in there anymore. It's about the software. So you have laggy Android running Genshin Impact on the Switch and wonder why it has performance issues. So you're running a layer on top of another layer to run the game, and then it's running slow. I know I recently did a discussion on this. So how you can't just take code from one device and throw it on another device that's not set up to run said code. I'm not a tech expert. I'm not a tech enthusiast. But I've known this since the days of the Sega Saturn and the PlayStation. Because of one of my favorite games that I love playing on the Sega Saturn. Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Most of the code in that game is still the version of the code that was assigned for the PlayStation. That's why the game has so many issues while it's running. That's why it lags. That's why it slows down. Even though for me, it wasn't a major issue because the game is still great. And some of those issues are really small. Like it takes a while to load between transitioning areas, which the PlayStation version of the game doesn't. The code is designed for the PlayStation version of the game. It's not designed for the Sega Saturn. And that's just at low level. This is just moving the code from one device to the next. This isn't dealing with the extra layer added that Android creates, and then the layer that the game itself creates on top of the game. So how is it that a quote unquote tech expert can't, or quote tech enthusiast can't understand this? How is it that we have so many people that can claim so much that they don't understand what they are talking about, but somebody like me, who does not claim that label, understands it better than them? How do they not get it? This is why I said, when Mighty Keith made that statement about throwing Xenoblade on the PS5, even if the machine has better hardware, if it's not coded to the machine, it's going to have problems. Some will be the same problems that already exist, and then there will be even worse problems because of mistranslation of code. Again, not a tech expert. I mean, I've dabbled and played around with code. I've dabbled and played around with game engines, so I kind of have a little bit of perspective, but I don't have as deep as somebody who actually works on this stuff. But if I baseline can tell you what your problem is, I can diagnose the issue that you are having with whatever you're talking about. Maybe your logic is flawed. And dude was dying on this hill. He was fighting for his life on this hill when he made this statement. He's pocket watching people. And on top of that, to be a tech enthusiast, he really does not understand the technology. If I understand it better than you, then you are not an enthusiast. You are nowhere near that level. If I understand what you are talking about better than you do, as my name suggests, I'm the idea guy. So I don't know how the tech works. I just know the ideas that I think would be cool to work with the tech. I would need someone who understands the tech in order to tell me if what I think is possible to happen. I mean, I'm still going to argue with them about, hey, how can we do this? Or is this a good workaround? Because I do have some understanding. But I am not that guy. And clearly, people on the internet think they are that guy, and they are not. It's one of those things where you look at something and you're like, wow, bruh, how can you say this with a straight face? And how can you say this so seriously and die on this hill? And this is not somebody trolling. This is not somebody joking around. This is somebody who thinks that because taking unsigned code from one device and throwing it on another is just going to work the way it's supposed to. It takes reworking the code, reworking the OS, reworking the different layers to get them to sync with the hardware in the machine, to take advantage of what the machine is capable of doing. If you have, let's just go for example, Mac OS and Linux are both Unix based. They are both Unix based OSs. If you removed Mac OS from a Mac and just threw Linux on it without properly setting up the hooks in Linux, any version of Linux, and throwing it on that machine without coding or prep work, it's going to be a bust. And I know there's somebody out there right now that's going to say, well, no, you can go ahead and do that right now. I could go ahead and download any of Linux and throw it on a Mac and it'll work because someone's already done the coding work. Without that person having done the coding work, it wouldn't be a thing that you could do. But that's my whole point. People, for some reason, just think all computers process things the same way. Different chips do different things. They work in different ways. They have different methods to acquire the same outcome. But this shouldn't be hard to understand. This is literally human logic that that you have to apply to computers. This is human logic. Different people come up with different ways to come up with the solution to the same problem that could end up in the same result. That's how coding works. It's literally how human minds process things. I don't understand why people don't get that. So if you took my brain and stuck it in someone else's body, in their life, I'm going to behave differently than that person would. It's not hard to get. It's not hard to understand. It's a very simple concept. And I think when I just said that, somebody's mind just got blown because they didn't think of it that way. If you took Shadow Fox's brain, stuck it in my body, and put him in my life situations, he would do things differently than I would. Because we think differently. We are inherently different people. There may be some similarities between us somewhere, but we are inherently different people. Our minds process things in different ways. We are formatted differently. The same thing applies to computers. It applies to computer chips. It applies to motherboards. It applies to hard drives and SSDs. Things work differently to get the same result. You can create the same result, but you have to work with the process and within the flow of how the machine works to get it. Again, not a hard concept to understand. And I'm wondering, how many people, just curious for the people that do listen to me, how many people actually thought about it in that way of like, this is a human thing. We process differently. You can't give me the same information you give someone else and get the exact same thought process, even if we come to the same result. How many people have thought about it that way? Because I can tell you right now, if all these quote-unquote tech enthusiasts or quote-unquote tech experts actually thought about it at that level, they'd actually be a lot better at figuring out the things that they claim they know. And then I wouldn't make them look stupid on social media. Sorry, I gotta correct myself. I wouldn't make them look cognitively deficient on social media. I wouldn't make them look cranially inept on social media. This is one of the reasons I don't do debates with people. The other is that I get angry too quickly, and when I'm angry, I don't always think everything straight. Even though I have a clear-cut mindset when I'm agitated, it tumbles out my mouth way different than I'm actually thinking it. But the other reason is I break people's logic down too quickly. And then I'd just be in an arguing war with somebody. And at that point, it's not worth it. So, yeah. But I am curious about the people listening. Breaking it down to the human level, did that actually help someone else understand things a little bit better? Because I don't think anybody thinks about it that way. It's just like, oh, well, but trust me, that was me for a long period of time. But I'm going to go ahead and drop this here. Thank you guys very much for listening in to my little rant here. Keep your eyes and ears up for more stuff from me. And until the next time, enjoy your games. Peace out, everybody.